So now that you've pulled up their birth chart, you're probably wondering if they're your soulmate or going to be your biggest trauma. So today we're going to be talking about the biggest red flags in synastry astrology, which is when you pull up your chart and another person's birth chart and you overlay them to see the interactions between you two, and also get into some that start out sweet but might end in a restraining order, and the ones that are obviously just like fucking horrible. So we'll get into that. But if you're new here, hi, my name is Maren. I do videos about astrology. You can check out my music. You can check out my movies. I don't know if any will be out yet actually when this video comes out, but you can check out things. Follow me everywhere, you know the drill. And just a disclaimer, of course, like, let's be fucking adults and intelligent here. If you have like one of these things, but you know that your relationship is solid, one challenging synastry aspect or even a couple is not going to ruin your relationship. You're going to need either multiple synastry aspects that are challenging or literally no redeeming qualities to make up for that. So basically, like, let's be realistic here. Just know going in that we're all going to have some challenges in our synastry with another person. It's about the multitude, how exact they are, and if there's anything good to compensate for that, because good doesn't always outweigh the bad. In fact, I would say that more than likely the negative will overwhelm the positive, but if there's a ton of positive and one negative, that's very different. So sorry, I had to get the disclaimers out the way for the people that don't have a brain. And just to reiterate, synastry is when you have your birth chart and then someone else is on the outside, or theirs is on the inside and yours is on the outside. This is not a composite chart. Composite is when you combine the two into midpoints to view the life of the relationship. If you want a video on composites and on red flags and composites, I can do that too. This is about red flags in synastry, which is seeing your interactions to each other. How do you feel about this person? How do they feel about you? What is like the vibe of your interaction, not the life of the relationship itself? Both are valuable. The synastry shows your behavior to one another and the composite shows the life of the relationship. Okay, sorry. I'll put a little thing in the beginning that's like, if you don't want an intro, skip to this, but I think that was helpful. So first we're going to get into red flags in synastry that first look good. Things that are kind of like seductive traps, or you might be really positive about it first, but then realize this is not healthy. So the first is when someone's Venus is conjunct the other person's Pluto. So this is textbook obsession, very, very intense chemistry. Generally, the Pluto person is obsessed with the Venus person, and the Venus person feels like the Pluto person has a hold or control over them. It's extremely like fixated. You cannot stop thinking about each other. There's obsession, there's control, there's jealousy. It's really like hot at first, but if this is around other challenging aspects, or this is like the only intense thing in someone's chart with someone else, this can give horror movie. Like, this is like the Pluto person is setting out to kill you when you leave them kind of thing. I'm kidding, but also like that's the intensity. So Venus conjunct Pluto might be nice at first because you feel super chosen, but long term this is not healthy or sustainable. Now, the second is having the moon conjunct Neptune. So if your moon is conjunct a partner's Neptune or vice versa, this is something where you can think you found your soulmate. Now, soulmate is not something that I particularly like believe in heavily or don't believe in. I think that we get along with people at certain times in our lives, and some people are very positive for us. I think the word is loaded. But when you have the moon conjunct Neptune, it can definitely feel as if you found someone that is just like your forever person in a way. Okay, sorry for the background change. My camera died, so I'm charging it now and filming, and I have to set it up like this to charge it. But basically, the moon conjunct Neptune means that the Neptune person might feel like they literally found the person that understands them most, and the moon person can feel very chosen, or like the Neptune person manifested them specifically. So that will often turn into projection, idealization, and escapism, where there's a big codependency and illusion going on, that neither of you are really trusting or really aligned on a grounded level, and there's a fantasy that can feel like a huge letdown when it goes away. So moon conjunct Neptune, especially the moon person, can feel very, very lied to, and the Neptune person can get lost in building up a fantasy or a projection that is very, very dishonest. Another one that isn't necessarily bad but can lack support is if Mars is trine Venus between two people and there's no Saturn grounding. So it's not necessarily bad, but if you have really good aspects, particularly a trine between Mars and Venus of two people, it can show that there's like good sexual or romantic chemistry and that you get along really well, but there's not glue. And so I see this a lot in the charts of people where they had a really strong impact or it was like a situationship, but the circumstances literally did not allow for stability in the relationship, so it can burn out. And there's also one that I have found a lot because I find it's very, very magnetic, and I've had this with people romantically, non-romantically, whatever. It is having Venus on a partner's ascendant. Oh my god, why is my light doing that? That is so weird. Why would my light flash when I said that? That's so weird. So having Venus on a partner's ascendant or vice versa shows that the Venus person is aesthetically aligned with the ascendant person. Like Venus is values. So if you have the same Venus as someone's ascendant, you are super into their appearance. And the ascendant person feels like the Venus person values and dotes on them. It's a great aspect. But if there's no Saturn or there's no like solid Venus Mars there even, you can be really obsessed with the idea of one another and take no action. So Venus on the ascendant is a green flag, but if there's nothing connecting you two on a more emotional, grounded level, it can be super duper frustrating and feel as if you like the way each other look, but there's no actual relationship there. Now, the second group of red flags is communication issues and like communication war zones even. This is a red flag for constant misunderstanding and just toxic conflict in terms of being around one another or communicating. I would say that these are actually easier to overcome than the emotional ones, and these are ones that you might find annoying, but like you can get over them. It just does show generally like a lot of fighting going on. So the first is having Mercury square Mercury. This just generally shows thinking the other person is stupid. Like if your Mercury is square mine, I'm just gonna be like, how the fuck do you think or communicate that way? Like, what is wrong with you? You Mercury Taurus slow ass motherfucker. Just kidding. A lot of times one of them wants a debate and the other just wants silence as well because they're so different that usually one is the more aggressive one and one is the more passive one. Again, Mercury aspects, you can get over them if there's other stuff, but like, like I said, I really don't fuck with a Taurus Mercury or Aquarius Mercury. And opposition's pretty bad too. Opposition, like Mercury opposite Mercury, that can show, this camera's really high. Mercury opposite Mercury can show a little bit more like direct debating and fighting. Mercury square Mercury's more just like nagging. Both are challenging. I would say that both are unwanted generally. So Mercury square someone's moon can also be annoying. This can generally show that the moon person is like saying they're fine, but thinking that the other person hates them. It can feel as if the Mercury person is just nagging or combative towards the moon person a lot of the time, which can just be super annoying. So moon square Mercury is like chronic misinterpretation, I would say, with moon. Sorry, this is really upsetting me. I need to get this perfect. Moon square Mercury, I would consider chronic misunderstanding and the Mercury person nagging and the moon person feeling like they're just being harassed or annoyed all the time. Mercury opposite someone's Neptune can also be really frustrating because this is like just gaslight. I see this so much with gaslighting in relationships is when there's a hard aspect between Mercury and someone's Neptune, particularly the opposition. The Mercury person is trying to communicate and the Neptune person is gaslighting them. Or the Neptune person is trying to stay positive and feels like the Mercury person is bringing up things or speaking in a way that is disrupting their fantasy. Like gaslighting, ghosting, even with this, the Neptune person is generally the culprit here, unless you have a really fucked up Mercury whole situation. The Neptune person is usually the aggressor, or maybe just the person whose hopes are so high they're not being upfront with the Mercury person. This is miscommunication on like spiritual steroids, just like really, really not communicating well. Then in terms of the third kind of group here is with power struggles and control. These are like the more like heavy hitters, I would say, where the other things like Mercury aspects, even sometimes Venus, you can overcome that, like the camaraderie or the friendship over time. Like you can get over some of the small stuff. This is the manipulative or imbalanced connection from the get-go, where there's just inherently a power control issue. The first is any hard aspects from Saturn to someone's personal planets. So if you have like your Saturn square someone's moon or opposite their Venus, a square or opposition from Saturn to anything in someone else's chart, or their Saturn opposite square anything in your chart. This can indicate longevity. It can indicate that you work this out long time, but It often feels like you're walking on eggshells, or one partner is the teacher and the other is the bad student. I would argue that the conjunction is not as difficult because basically with Saturn conjunct something, it shows that you're like in it together for that, or there's a mutual being on the same vibe of that seriousness. When Saturn is opposite or square something, the Saturn person can just be like, no. It can just be, it can feel like a cold shoulder or a door slam while the other person's planet just wants to exist. Like, if it's Venus, it generally shows that the Venus person is trying to be loving and the Saturn person cuts them off. If it's Mars, the Mars person is trying to be active or like do things. If it's the moon, man, Saturn on someone's moon is so rough. It's just generally like that person is so cold or just can't reciprocate. And then on the sun, they usually want to limit your shine. The same honestly goes for Mars opposite or square things. I didn't actually write this in the list I had here, but I would say that Mars square or opposite something in someone else's chart can just show that the Mars person is mean or upsets you. And if you're the planet person, it might feel to the Mars person like you are being a baby. I'd say that they're usually get-overable, though. Like, you can usually get over a hard Mars aspect, unless I would say that my least favorite out of those is Mars on someone's moon. If your Mars on someone's moon, you are usually somewhat of a bully to them, or, you know, vice versa. If the Mars is on your moon, you could just feel like they're so mean, or they trigger you so much. So it can be hard to get over that. Pluto conjunct or opposite or square someone's moon can be really yucky. Pluto conjunct anything is direct intensity, like they are on you to change or transform. Pluto square or opposite, still really difficult and icky. It can feel more like they're not intentional, but they still trigger you. It's emotional intensity that can border on psychological warfare. It just feels like the Pluto person really wants you to change or can be manipulating you or forcing you to emotionally be in situations that are uncomfortable. And the Pluto person can feel like it just really codependently attached to your emotional reactions to them. I mean, if you get through it, it can be healing, but I don't think it's like the bitch, you don't want to get through these, you just move on to someone who doesn't have this aspect. Usually just completely wrecks you. The moon person can feel super, super raw from the Pluto person's obsession and manipulation. General hard aspects from Pluto to any planet, I would also say toxic. Like, almost everyone is gonna have some degree of Pluto in the chart. I don't think I do, thinking now with my boyfriend. I don't think we have any Pluto. It's not that, I'm trying to think. I don't think we do. But any degree of hard aspect from Pluto, so Pluto square or opposite anything in the partner's chart, or conjunct, like even conjunct, it's just yucky power, control, and manipulation. Venus Pluto can at first appear super charismatic and chemistry. It almost always ends in horrible falling out because the Pluto person was very controlling or manipulative, and the Venus person did not commit in the way the Pluto person thought would happen. So it just can be so toxic and obsessive. And another one that can show a lot of control or force is the North Node conjunct a partner's planet if there's nothing grounding. So the North Node is not a planet. It just indicates volume up or drive and like working hard at something. So if that's on a partner's planet, that can show that they motivate that in you a ton. So if it's on your sun, they motivate you to achieve a ton. If it's on your moon, they motivate you to be emotionally secure. It's not negative at all, but if there's nothing else in the chart, it can feel like they are your coach or your like motivator without reciprocating back. Like if you're the North Node person, you might feel as if you are hyping this person up a ton and they're not reciprocating. So if there's nothing else grounding, it can feel like the North Node person is pulling all the weight in the relationship or is the momentum. And then the fourth kind of group here is spiritual or karmic messiness, where people mistake mess for fate or they mistake trauma bonds for their soulmate when in reality it's a trap. And the first one here is anything with the South Node that is not mitigated by Saturn or Mars kind of grounding harmonious aspects in the chart. So we just talked about the North Node. The South Node is the opposite. So it's about releasing, non-attachment, trust, letting go, and removing something from your life. It shows that you trust it, you don't need to fix this, you're like, I'm out. It can show apathy. So the South Node on something is not inherently bad. It can show that you trust that in your partner and you don't care to like fixate on that and that you're like, I'm good. But if it's on like your Venus or your moon or your Mars or anything, the partner is on yours, it can feel familiar and it can drain you completely. if there's nothing grounding. It can feel like you're like, I got this, I'm okay, I trust this, I feel close to this person, but you can feel as if there's a Harry Potter Dementor like sucking your soul during that. So like the North Node, it is not necessarily bad, but if there's nothing stable in that partnership, like you might feel as if there's just a huge amount of tiredness and the person is draining you. And if you're the South Node person, you might feel like you don't know why they resent you, or you don't know why this person is so like reactive to you. You're the person like draining them, kind of. So I've had some of this before with people, and it feels like I'm just exhausted around them. Another one that can be really messy is Neptune on someone's ascendant or IC. So if your Neptune is conjunct someone's ascendant, generally you are completely clouded and have no idea what their real identity is. And the ascendant person can feel as if they don't know who they are in your presence, and like they need to perform to be an ideal. The Neptune person tries to be this ideal version. You have no idea who they really are. You are getting dishonesty. It's a little different because it can show that like the ascendant is just our outward behavior. It's all fantasy. You're not seeing each other clearly, and that the Neptune person can feel like a savior to the ascendant person. The ascendant person can be like, oh, you're saving me, when in reality, like, you're fucking delusional, both of you. And often when that fog clears, you're holding a lot of trauma. Now, Neptune on someone's IC can be so brutal and misleading. The IC person might think that the Neptune person is going to be their foundations, or that they feel like they found endgame, or the life that they want together is aligned. Like, they're like, I want 3 kids and a golden retriever, and the other person's like, I do too. But the Neptune person doesn't really realize that they don't want what the IC person wants, and they can grow resentful. So there can just be a really yucky kind of alignment there. And honestly, any hard Neptune aspects to personal planets, like Neptune square opposite, sometimes conjunct nearly anything, can just show an immense amount of projection and dishonesty, specifically from the Neptune person, but then the planet person doesn't speak up for themselves or lies to themselves. So anything hard Neptune can just be a spiritual, karmic, dishonesty, mayhem kind of thing. And then there's also like a category of these where sometimes red flags can become green flags depending on the context or duration of the relationship. So there is challenging synastry, but not all of it is toxic. So these are some where if you are working together, like if you own a business, or if you are 2 people that are working out something in your lives together, there can be like positive alignments. So like I already mentioned, the red flags are when it's a hard aspect, but if you have Saturn in like a trine, sometimes a conjunction, sextiles, I don't give a fuck. They're too weak. I literally don't ever talk about them. Rare, like, whatever. But if you have Saturn trine or sometimes conjunct something in the other party's chart, it can show a lot of structure and a lot of stability. And it might not be like the hottest aspect, but if you're like doing business or you want to build a mature life together, Saturn is great. Pluto in a trine can be really supportive for mutual intensity and transformation in a harmonious way. So if your Pluto is trying someone's Venus or Mars, or theirs is trying your Venus or Mars, it can show that you are in this together with like respectful dedication and intensity. And sometimes if there's a square and it's not that bad, like it's Mercury square Mercury, it can show that you grow together to reach an understanding. Generally, if that happens, it's because there's other positive things. So on its own, negative aspects are negative aspects, no ifs, ands, or buts. But if in the context of 2 charts, there's a ton of positives, and then like Mercury square Mercury, you'll probably find that you all learn to communicate in a pretty positive way with one another. So if you've dated someone with any of these, or if you're married to someone with any of these aspects, let me know like your story and your experience below. I'm curious how you feel about these lived out, or if you're aware of having these. And if you want a breakdown of like green flags in synastry and some of the most positive things, I'd love to get into that, because that's usually what I hope to see when I look at these charts. And yes, I do synastry readings. I both have live readings over Zoom, and I also do pre-recorded readings, which I'm not going to be able to do any in November, because I will be doing a movie then and have 0 downtime. So if you want a reading from me, either get it this October, or you're gonna have to wait till the second half of December for any sort of reading with me. So do get on that, and I do synastry if you ask for that in the notes. I do all sorts of things. So hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you have a good October, because this is coming out after eclipse season, so I hope that things have calmed down for you, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.
How there is one thing all forgetting.